Now, in the previous part of the lesson, we were talking about finding the x and y intercepts. Well, there's lots of different ways to graph, so really what's kind of the point of finding the intercepts of a graph? Why do we need to know that? Well, the y-intercept is always a really easy point to find when graphing. So the y-intercept is very helpful for us when we start graphing. And that's not true for just linear equations. That's going to be true for quadratic equations. That's going to be true for cubics, quartics, quintics, really any polynomial. Rational functions, that's really helpful to know. It's helpful to know if a y-intercept even exists. Sometimes graphs don't have y-intercepts. So the y-intercept, the importance of it is to help us when we are graphing. Okay, that's kind of the purpose of finding a y-intercept. And as we get into more complicated graphs, we're not going to do these really nice exact graphs when we do them by hand. We're going to sketch them. And that point is going to help us out a lot. Now, the x-intercept is very important to us. So when we're finding the x-intercept, we're really finding the solution of an equation. And we have redefined that to be called the root of the equation. Or sometimes it's also referred to as the zero. Okay, so root and zero are kind of interchangeable. But when we start solving equations, so our next section we're going to be dealing with absolute values and even quadratics, cubics, any polynomial. When we are asking you to solve, we are asking you to find the x-intercept. And we're going to learn different methods for that because as equations become more complicated, we use different methods to find the x-intercept. But whenever we're solving, that's what we're doing. We are finding the x-intercept. We are finding the point of our graph where it's crossing over that x-axis. So even if we have a really complicated graph, so let's say we have something that looks like this. Well, if I'm looking at this, there's 3 places here where it's crossing the x-axis. So we have 3 x-intercepts. So that means that we really have 3 solutions to this graph. Okay? And then there's some other properties too, like if we have x-intercepts that are close together, your graph isn't going to quite curve up as high. The farther apart they are, the farther they curve. So there's some interesting facts with that. But x-intercept, we're finding the zero. We're finding the root. Okay. So even if we just kind of do a quick example of that, here it says to find the root of f of x equals 5x minus 10. Well, again, we're finding the x-intercept. So we have to know what that means. So we're finding the x-intercept. Again, the x-intercept is going to be some number for the x value that we need to figure out what it is, and our y value is 0. So in an equation, now remember f of x, this really means the same thing as y. Okay, so we can't forget about that. So we're setting this equation equal to 0 in this case, and we're solving that. So we would add the 10 over. So 10 equals 5x, divide by 5, so we get 2 equals x, so x equals 2. This is my answer. This is my solution. So this is the 0, we call it the root, but it's a solution, it's an x-intercept. So all of those things are talking about the same thing, and we're going to be finding the solution for the rest of the year. So understanding that concept is very, very important. So knowing how to find an x-intercept, understanding what that vocab term means is very critical for your success in this class. So make sure we have a good understanding of that vocabulary term.